Hello everyone, I'm back for another update here. I am currently on the shoreline of Potts Creek. And I guess this is the best way right now, at least to cross the creek, is along this log if you don't want to get your feet wet. I haven't attempted the whole thing, but the former log bridge over there was washed away earlier this year. But I gotta start heading back because there are some showers, rain showers heading this way. So what I'm going to talk about here today is more about climate, my expertise. I've been studying climate since I was a young child, on my own. What I'm going to focus on today is talking about glaciers. Today I was doing some research on Google, looking at historical images of glaciers in different parts of the world to see how much of a retreat there has been in recent years by comparing images from the last 40 years of different glaciers in different parts of the world. And many areas have continued to show a decrease in ice coverage in the last 40 years. This ties in with what I said a few videos back, that the sun over the last 70 years or so has been very steady, very active, and even though we had a weak cycle 24, we're still in a cumulative active period. The oceans still have a lot of stored up heat from the prior 60 years. So the glacier retreat is likely going to continue at least for another decade or two, perhaps. However, it is not a rapid rate of retreat. It's more of a slow, steady, a bit of an acceleration since about 2010 in some areas, not all. And my theory on that is since it ties in with the manipulation going on, I feel, because what that does, as I've been saying, they have been manipulating weather systems, enhancing convection. What this does, when convection is enhanced, you're taking additional heat out of the ocean through this convection. And where does that heat eventually go? It gets released into the atmosphere, eventually released into space over time. The Tonga eruption in 2022 interfered with that process to some degree because you had extra water vapor in the atmosphere, which prevented this heat from escaping into space. It's getting released at a slower rate from the atmosphere. Plus, we're in a solar max, and again, it's not a very strong solar max, yet it is a solar max, a little below average. this is also releasing additional heat into the atmosphere as well. And these factors have contributed, especially the trends where I noticed it the most. I looked in a number of different areas of the world on images today. I noticed in the Alps they're losing a lot. Seems to be Iceland and it seems like most of the areas are areas where they're under the influence of the Atlantic and ocean currents, which have been bringing warmer air into these regions, apparently. Like Iceland especially, I noticed the trend. Other areas, not as much, or much slower rate of decrease. Greenland actually the last few years, the retreat has apparently in many areas has leveled off, started to level off. In Alaska, interior Alaska, I've noticed no appreciable change on the glaciers around Mount McKinley in the last 40 years. Along the coastline of Alaska, yes, there has been a retreat going on, gradual retreat. It continues. Has there been any areas that have been advancing? And the only area I could find where an advance perhaps is starting to happen is interior British Columbia, Yukon Territory. There are some glaciers there that I noticed in the last few years where the trend has reversed and there's been a slight gain on some of their glaciers. Now, whether that's the beginning of a new trend or not that's going to spread elsewhere remains to be seen. But most other areas, the Andes, South America, Kilimanjaro has lost some ice fields up there in the last 40 years. Although the last couple of years appears to have been a bit of a recovery, but not much. So I did a very detailed analysis of images. And my take on it is that the retreat is going to likely continue perhaps for another decade or two. And it depends on what the sun does, because we're still in a cumulative active period. Look at that, a beaver freshly cut this tree out. But we're in a period where it's going to take a while. It's like kind of reversing a ship. The glaciers have been retreating since 1850 at varying rates. And a lot of the retreat occurred between 1850 and 1920 or 30, and then but they've still been retreating since then, just at a much slower rate. Does that mean runaway global warming has hit the earth and we're going to lose all our ice soon? It's hard to say. As I've said in previous videos, much of recent history, relatively recent history, I feel the Arctic has been free of ice, and the Alps did not have glaciers on them, for example. Most of this ice came from the Little Ice Age, where the glaciers reformed in the Alps, and perhaps the Arctic Ocean, it got cold enough for it to refreeze. Is my take on it. But I feel that throughout much of history since the last ice age, the Arctic has been ice-free. as recently as Viking times when they settled Greenland. And here's the last view of Potts Creek. I'm going to turn away now. I got to get heading home because the sky is darkening. And I do not have a rain jacket with me. And I also noticed that they're trying to get the MJO to go back into phase 3 and 4. Well, it's in 3, which is the reason why it's fading out of phase 7 and 8, appears right now. Trying to head toward 3, maybe even 4. 3 means cold eastern U.S., third of the country. 4 means most of the country's U.S. is mild. We'll have to see how that develops. They are predicting some possible snow here next couple days. Although right now it's well up in the 60s. Cold front hasn't came through yet. But it is approaching, and you can see the clouds coming in. And this is part of Jefferson National Forest. I'm traversing right now. And I do not have to take a car to come here. It's within easy walking distance of my house. And this area is inhabited by beavers. I hear a low flying plane here, or a helicopter. Let me see if I can locate it. Must be above the cloud deck. I don't see it. But this is a trail I created that comes off my property. And as I said, my property is bordered on Jefferson National Forest land. And Jefferson National Forest extends all the way back across Potts Creek. Miles, goes on for miles, to a wilderness area. The sky is getting quite dark. So that's going to be it. This is a little beaver pond. And beavers dammed it up right here along this section. Is a dam here that beavers are continuously working, and there are probably at least a half a dozen of them that live back here. Oh yeah. trying to get back before the skies open up on me here. It is already starting to rain a bit. And this is a little kind of a makeshift bridge I made to get me across this wet spot. And here comes the rain. I gotta get up this bank to get back. That was gonna be it for this video. It's really starting to rain now. I will be back soon.